Welcome back to another one of Mr. Lang's vlogs. Today, we're taking a look at the Constitutional Convention and the Constitution itself. One of the biggest moments in our country's history, and a very much needed one too. So, before we even get to the convention itself, we've got to talk about what happened to even, well, make the Articles of Confederation, which was the Constitution at this point in time, eventually be null and void. Again, canceled out, see you later, for the U.S. Constitution. There were many reasons, like we talked about before, but the biggest thing that happens that really does show that there are some weaknesses with the Articles of Confederation is Shays Rebellion. In Massachusetts, in Western Mass, out near West Springfield, there is, of course, one of the most notorious rebellions that occurs under a man by the name of Daniel Shays. Now, Daniel Shays he himself was a Revolutionary War soldier, and, well, because of the merchant-controlled legislature out in the eastern part of the state, again in Boston, these guys who are merchants and all about trading, they really didn't have the concerns of the western part of the state, which was mainly farming. So they began to impose heavy taxes on land, because of course they didn't own a lot of land in the eastern part of the state, but again, in the western part of the state they did. And so basically, if they didn't pay this tax to help raise revenue for the state of Massachusetts, they'd go ahead and they'd seize the property, and they could even throw you in jail. So many of the farmers start to rebel as they see themselves, their families, their friends all jailed over this. And so they do go ahead, they literally band together under Daniel Shays, who, mind you, was in so much debt, he actually sold the sword that was given to him by Marquis de Lafayette, a very famous general that helped out during the Revolution. He sells this sword to go ahead and, pay for food for his family because of these heavy taxes. So what they do is they rebel. And, this is a sure sign that this whole government isn't working. The fact that they have to go ahead and, Massachusetts calls out to the federal government to help put down this rebellion. And they can't because, of course, they're poor. They can't send an army. Again, at the end of the day, we have so many issues here. And Shays Rebellion really was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, because of this, our forefathers went ahead and they met down in Pennsylvania in Independence Hall. And this is where the convention begins. I've been there. It's a beautiful place if you ever get a chance to go. It really is cool to walk the whole mall that's there, including the Liberty Bell that's there. It's 1787 in Philadelphia. And what we see is, of course, it's a hot summer there. And you have altogether delegates from every state invited to go ahead and come to this convention and approve the Articles of Confederation, which clearly were not working. So everyone attended, but Rhode Island. Rhode Island did not attend, but the rest of the delegates from all the other states did attend. Altogether, we have 55 delegates that attended. Now, not necessarily all at once. Some came later, some left early. What's incredible about it, though, is the fact that, Philadelphia is very hot in the summer. This was an especially hot summer in July, and they had to keep these big windows that you see here closed because they didn't want secrets to get out. So again, they were, really cranky old guys trying to, go ahead and make this document. I don't know how they kept order. Oh wait, they had George Washington. What? George Washington goes ahead and presides over this convention, and thank goodness, I can't think of a better person who's a natural-born leader to go ahead and, get these guys all on the same page. On top of that, we do have James Madison, who kept copious notes during the entire convention, and those notes do go ahead and make up the document that you see before you today. That's why he's known as the father of the Constitution, because he really is the one that took notes during this madness that really was the convention. The men that wrote the Constitution is considered our founding fathers. They really are, they set the foundation for what this country would be into the future. But it's also good to know that these guys that we have here are all wealthy white males. And unfortunately, because of that, that's the interest in which that they had. We're going to see the Constitution doesn't say anything about, rights for African Americans. It has no rights for women as well. It's sad. It really is. This is the era. So, of course, this is how it was. But yeah, we do see that they are going to be wealthy white males. So keep that in mind when you go ahead and you look at some of the laws, when you take a look at the document yourself on your own. And then you get the founding fathers, you got George Washington up there being all George Washington, like all like, oh man, I'm the man, yeah. And then you got like Alexander Hamilton, he's over there, he's whispering into Ben Franklin's ear, like, oh my gosh, that is George Washington. Again, you get the two guys over there with their hands out, just fangirling over, of course, our boy Washington. Again, at the end of the day, it really was, what a convention, right? You can only imagine, like, just what was said in those walls, right? Some things we know, not everything. So what are some of the issues that divided these guys? Well, they weren't all on the same page. First, they had to figure out the power of the federal government. Would the states or the federal government have the most power? They also had to figure out representation in Congress. How many members of Congress does each state get? Is it going to be based on equal representation like small states want? Or is it based on population like large states want? And of course, slavery. How are slaves going to be counted? Are they going to be counted towards population? Is the slave trade going to continue? These are huge issues. And they have to go ahead and, lead the country in trying to figure these things out. So first up, we have the Virginia Plan during this convention. This basically called for a brand new national government, and they're going to throw out the Articles of Confederation altogether. Here, right? 3 separate branches of government, again, based off of Baron de Montesquieu, who was an Enlightenment thinker, who literally laid out 3 branches of government. A legislative branch, executive branch, and a judicial branch. However, it does say representation in the legislative branch would be based on the population of the state. Now, obviously, large states like this plan. Small states are not going to like this plan. And absolutely, it makes sense why. Again, you're going to have, if it's based on population, a big state like Virginia is going to win the vote every time over a little state like Delaware. So, New Jersey, a smaller state, is going to come up with the New Jersey Plan. Now, the New Jersey Plan says that the legislature has 1 house, and that 1 house is each state getting a vote, meaning each state would get a delegate to that 1 house. So it doesn't matter if you're New Jersey, you'd get 1, Massachusetts would get 1, Virginia would get 1. Again, small states are going to love this plan because it gives them equal representation, they believe, in the realm of states, but maybe not in the realm of population, as the large states argue. There would have to be some sort of compromise, because otherwise this isn't going to work. And we do see that with, the very appropriately named Great Compromise. Not a good compromise. There's a great compromise. That's right. Made by Roger Sherman, who you see on the bottom of your screen. Roger Sherman from Connecticut. He says, all right. Because they can't agree over this, right? First hurdle they bump heads on. He says, all right. What we'll do is we'll have a legislature, but it'll have 2 houses, 2 parts. A House of Representatives and a Senate. They're going to call that a bicameral, which literally means 2 house governments. So bicameral means 2 house. House would be based on the population of the state. So you have the House of Representatives being based on the population of the state. That's how many representatives you get in the House. Senate would be 2 per state. Again, this is a great compromise because you're going to have, again, some people, you're going to have small states that are going to like that. Okay, well, we get 2 senators per state. Okay, we're even there. Large states are happy because, again, now they get based on population. So this really is the best of all the worlds here. Again, Roger Sherman, hats off to him. He did a great job. So, the issue of slavery is a big one here, because the Southern states refused to even approve the Constitution if slavery didn't continue. Meaning, if they had voted against slavery or voted to get rid of it here in the Constitution, Southerners straight up said they wouldn't approve it. And so, there's going to be more compromises that occur during this, and we'll see what they are in just a moment. That was a terrible compromise to make, but they are going to make the northern states really have to agree. They want this Constitution. They got to agree that they will not abolish slavery at the writing of this Constitution. So a couple things come out of this. The 3/5 compromise. which literally made each slave worth 3/5 of a vote in deciding numbers in the House of Representatives. So again, the House of Representatives is based off the population of the state. So again, if you have a certain amount of population, you would have a representative depending on how big that population was. The Southerners wanted to include slaves into that population. Northerners were outraged. They said, "Hey, you don't give slaves rights. You consider them property. You don't consider them citizens. They should not be counted towards representation for the House of Representatives." The Southerners were really adamant about this, and so they agreed to 3/5. So a slave is worth 3/5 of a regular vote in the House of Representatives. Essentially, think of it this way: 3 out of every 5 slaves would count towards population when determining how many representatives the state would get for the House of Representatives. Again, horrible, but that's what it is. They did get, however, the slave trade could not be banished until 1808. So that's good in a way that there is some progress towards that. However, the issue here is that, well, slaves can reproduce. So we're going to see that even if you ban the slave trade, which it will be eventually, again, slaves can reproduce. They can continue to grow because of that. Again, they're humans. So we have the separation of powers with our 3 branches. Again, basically how the government will be organized. You got 3 branches. You know these. Say them along with me. You know them. Again, you get the legislative branch. That's going to be consisted of Congress, right? You have the executive branch. Easy one. And that last one? You got it, the judicial branch. And again, the legislative branch is made up of Congress, which is the House of Representatives, and the Senate. And they are going to make the laws. Congress makes the laws. Now, the executive branch is made up by the president, and the president is going to enforce the laws or carry out the laws. Now, the judicial branch is made up by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to go ahead and interpret the laws. Okay, so this is very important. Make sure you know this, as this is huge. This is the setup of our government. Other important terms to know: eminent domain, that's the action of the state to seize a citizen's private property. This is actually in the 5th Amendment. So if you don't think the government can't take your property, well, they can. The government can take your property, however, they have to give you just compensation, meaning they have to give you some sort of valued money value of the actual land. So yes, the government can seize your land, but they'll give you just compensation for it. They'll give you money for it, equal to or above the value of it, in fact, in most cases. You have the elastic clause. Think like an elastic. Stretches, right? Well, the elastic clause just does that. It says that laws can be stretched over the time if you go ahead and fit the time period. So again, this means that they were thinking ahead. They were future-proofing this document here in 1787. You have the Supremacy Clause, very different from the Articles of Confederation, because the Supremacy Clause says if there's a conflict between a state law and a federal law, you always follow the federal law. That's above everything. So say, for example, all of a sudden, the state says the new voting age is 14. Well, sorry, can't vote, because the federal government says it is 18. So it's very interesting how that works. Even if, of course, the state government says, no, we said 14. The Supremacy Clause says the federal government can go ahead and say, nope, can't follow that. You follow the 18. That's what we said. Then you have due process. Due process is a legal requirement that the state must respect all legal rights that the citizens has. It really says that, of course, the state has to respect all the laws that you have, which is good. It's good to have the state respect your rights, So now that they drafted this thing up, which again you're going to take a peek at, we're going to have the battle of the century between Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Now, I don't like the name Anti-Federalists, but to give you an idea what they both stand for, the Federalists are going to be people who really support the new Constitution. Think about federal government, so they want that to pass. The Federalists want a strong federal government. They want the Constitution. Anti-Federalists, which again, I don't like the name. It doesn't mean they are they're not against the federal government or anything. What it just means is that they oppose the new Constitution, and in most cases for good reason, which we're going to talk about. So first, the Federalists are, well, unsurprising, right? George Washington, Ben Franklin, James Madison, who will eventually switch sides, believe it or not. Alexander Hamilton, John Jay. These guys are for this new document. The Anti-Federalists are actually going to be your Thomas Paine, your Thomas Jefferson, your Patrick Henry, Mr. Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, right? And the reason why is because of really these four things. And honestly, if I was back then, I would have been an Anti-Federalist as well if I was a citizen of the country. Because I agree. When you look at the document, the actual U.S. Constitution, not the Bill of Rights, you'll see first it would take away liberties. All it talks about is what the government can do. And that really does feel like, okay, well, this big government's kind of taking over everything. It would create a very strong central government because of that. And in a very famous passage by Thomas Jefferson is that a government strong enough to give you everything you want is strong enough to take away everything you have. It would ignore the will of the people, of the common man, right? And of course, it clearly favored the wealthy. So they really wanted the government close to the people, more power in the states, and of course, they want to be guaranteed their unalienable rights. And, well, they get it with the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is going to be huge, as we're going to talk about that separately. So, the government powers that the government has, three different levels of it, is you have the delegated powers, which is powers granted to the national government. So again, powers that the national government have, that they can do, is a delegated power. In this case, declare war. That's a delegated power. Again, states can't declare war. Reserve powers. That's a power granted to the state. So for example, driver's license, the age to get it. That's something that is a state power. Again, here it's 16 and a half. And yet in other places it's younger, in some it's actually older to get your license. Again, depends on the state. And a concurrent power is a power they both share. That's something, for example, taxes. Again, the state government taxes you, the federal government taxes you. And so that's something they share, they both can do. That's concurrent power. All right, so that's what we got for you for today. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you back in the classroom.